On May the 25th, we celebrate the feast day of Bede, the most famous Anglo-Saxon monk, whose tomb can be seen in Durham Cathedral. In happier times, we can also visit the site of the monastery at Jarrow, where he lived and worked from boyhood in the 670s until his death in 735. The chancel of St Paul's Church at Jarrow is an Anglo-Saxon building, later than Bede, but part of his monastery. And an excellent reconstruction of the monastery and its work is shown at nearby Jarrow Hall, just off the A19 near the Tyne Tunnel. In Bede's time, the monastery at Jarrow was a major European centre of scholarship and also a leading workshop of artists and scribes producing books. Books? Think about it. There was no printing. Every part of the Bible, for example, and every other piece of public writing had to be produced by hand by scribes and decorated by artists. Bede's monastery was a major producer of such manuscripts for the whole of Europe. The Bible was very rarely bound up together as one book as we know it. Usually different parts, the Psalms, for example, or the Gospels, were produced and owned separately. It is known, though, that Bede's monastery produced 3 complete Bibles. There's a copy of one of them in the reconstruction at Jarrow today, and it is huge, written on thick vellum and weighing about 34 kilos. One of these 3 complete Bibles produced at Jarrow still exists and is kept in Florence in Italy. It was sent from the monastery to Pope Gregory II in 716, but we don't know if it reached him in Rome or how it came to be found in Tuscany. If the Jarrow monastery was famous for its scholars and its scribes across Europe, Bede himself is famous still as a writer. His longest and most famous work, written originally in Latin, is the Ecclesiastical History of the English People. Now, when Bede joined Jarrow in the 670s, the nearby monastery on Lindisfarne was about 40 years old, while Jarrow itself was newly founded. Augustine's monastery and mission in Canterbury, sent from Rome, was about 70 years old. Paulinus, sent from Canterbury, had brought Christianity to York and to the King of Northumbria in 627, about 50 years before Bede was born. So, we must understand that the northeast of England in the 7th century was a place where Christianity, largely lost when the Roman Empire ended, was taking new life very quickly indeed. But there were rivalries. Lindisfarne, which spread its mission and its preaching widely across the mainland, used the language and imagery of the Irish and the Scots. Canterbury and York and Jarrow were directly influenced from Rome. It's often said that Bede's Ecclesiastical History of the English People is the first history of England as a nation. This is, frankly, tendentious and anachronistic. The story Bede is telling is the story of how Christianity in the southern half of Britain, from Canterbury near the south coast to Northumbria, was brought to heel. I mean, he tells how there was rivalry between the Celtic or Lindisfarne ways of worship and the Roman ways, and how the Roman ways won. His centrepiece is his account of the Synod of Whitby in 663 and 664, where, over several pages, he reconstructs the debate about dates for Easter, led for the Roman persuasion by Wilfrid of Ripon and for the Celtic ideas by Cedd of Lindisfarne. The Romans won, which Bede appears to approve. The consequence, in broad terms, was that the ruling parties across southern Britain gradually conformed in worship to the ways of Rome. The process wasn't simple or straightforward or particularly faithful, however. Even after Whitby, Cedd of Lindisfarne established a new monastery in his own idiom at Lastingham in the North York Moors, but that is a story for another day. Eventually, Lindisfarne was attacked by Viking raiders and was finally abandoned, though not until the end of the 9th century, 150 or so years after Bede. The remains of both its leading saint, St Cuthbert, and those of Bede were eventually both taken into the great Norman Cathedral of Durham, that symbol of Norman dominance after the conquest of 1066. The pressure towards conformity and uniformity in worship, arguably, dogged the Church in Western Europe for centuries, until it was challenged in the Reformation and different Protestant churches were founded. Today, some of us worry about Christian unity. The unity that matters, surely, is a shared commitment to loving God and caring for each other in ways that we can each of us understand. Not about worshipping with the same words. So, in defiance of Bede, here is part of a prayer from the Iona community, a reconstruction of a Celtic tradition of worship. We are here, God, in this moment, this place, and we thank you that you are here with us. You know us, God. We do not have to pretend with you. Amen. I should